decision is not easy. It's not something people do lightly. It's not something that you can just do.
The Supreme Court rules to overturn Roe v. Wade abortion laws, which marks the first time in U.S. history that the court has taken away a constitutional right, and celebs are speaking out after the decision.
Incredibly important.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama took to Twitter with a lengthy message, saying she's heartbroken, especially for future generations. In her letter, Michelle wrote, quote, "This horrifying decision will have devastating consequences, and it must be a wake-up call, especially to the young people who will bear its burden."
Hello, my name is Elva, and our project is about the Texas Heartbeat Act. This act was put into effect September 1st of 2021. Now, what is the Texas Heartbeat Act? It's an act that prohibits abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, except in emergency situations. Emergency situations are limited to life-threatening physical condition, aggravated by, caused by, or arising from a pregnancy that places the woman in danger of death or a serious risk of substantial impairment of a major bodily function unless an abortion is performed. However, the law makes no exception for pregnancies resulting in rape or incest. We can actually find traces of these types of laws all the way back to around 1840, during a time when abortion was widespread and a large stigma-free experience for American women. During that time, the quickening doctrine from British common law was used to decide the legality of abortion. Quickening occurred when the pregnant woman could feel the fetus move, and this was usually during the 4th and 6th month of pregnancy. And at that time, this was the only way to confirm the pregnancy. So only the pregnant woman herself could testify fetal movement. Anything before this time, the fetus was considered only a potential life. Post-quickening abortions were then a crime, but only a misdemeanor. Historians suggest that these laws against post-quickening abortions were primarily intended to protect the life of the pregnant woman, not the fetal life. From there, we move a little closer before hitting the 1900s, and the anti-abortion movement began with physicians who used anti-abortion laws to increase their own stature and undermine their competition at the time, which were healers. Back then, healers and physicians had competition in the business of women's reproductive health care, and by the 1900s, every state had laws forbidding abortion at any stage. However, there was the exception where the licensed physician could provide abortions at their own discretion as long as the abortion preserved the life of the mother, again reflecting back that the mother's life was put into a higher priority than the fetal life. So this was the only loophole that women had to obtain abortions. And this made doctors the ultimate arbiters of the morality and legality of abortions. With that being said, we will now dive a little deeper into the details of the act and its aim. And with that, I will be passing it on to Elise.
Hi, I'm going to be briefly discussing some of the implications that have since followed the passing and enactment of the Texas Heartbeat Act, the meaning and significance behind these resulting circumstances, and what we may subsequently witness happen in future terms due to the nature of this law. Now, there are several aspects that I'd like to address, one being that of the fact that these current circumstances resulting from the passing of this law extend much farther beyond the scope of its intended purpose, that being abortion care. Now, in a wide range, the reversal of Roe v. Wade and especially the passing of the Texas Heartbeat Act could hint at the vulnerability of other implied rights that are not explicitly mentioned in the U.S. Constitution and established by court rulings. Not immediately or directly eliminating protections in regards to things such as the use of and access to contraception, as well as same-sex marriage put forth by previous Supreme Court rulings, there is still a high probability that it could give way to similar challenges within the future. Now, Due to the Heartbeat Act being the first successful attempt in becoming the most restrictive abortion law within the United States, it is in many ways serving as a catalyst to a chain reaction of various other laws which pose a significant similarity that are also encroaching upon other aspects of one's constitutional rights, including that of reproductive health, as aforementioned, as well as well-being. As of right now, we're seeing a wave of red states which have recently proposed a Heartbeat Act of their own, otherwise known as Senate Bill 8 copycat legislation. The states who have introduced this bill include Alabama, Arizona, Idaho, Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, Ohio, Georgia, and Oklahoma. We can only anticipate that there may be more to come within the near future as well.
For the future, I can't say what will happen. It's definitely up to the administration and what administrations are taking over. I think media has a big part of it as well. I think kind of the messages that the media pushes out that reaches the largest audiences, I think that's going to have a lot of effect, especially when it comes, we have, new generations of people coming up, kids that are growing up, coming to the voting age, and I think the media that they view definitely is going to have an impact. So there's a lot of different ways it could go. Personally, I think that I don't have a personal opinion on abortion itself. The big issue I do have is that I think that there are precautions that people should be taking if you can't afford a child, you need to be taking necessary precautions and not just relying on an abortion. I think that there's Plan Bs, there's contraceptives, there's so many other things that you could do, birth control, there's so many other steps you could be taking.
As for the magnitude of effect that not only the Texas Heartbeat Act, but similar laws implemented by these additional states have yet to follow have, to constrain someone to endure a pregnancy against their will has life-altering consequences, including serious health risks from continued pregnancy and childbirth, making it increasingly difficult to escape poverty, derailing one's education, career, and life plans, as well as making the prospect of leaving an abusive partner much more difficult. This decision also leads to the event of miscarriages being subject to suspicion, investigation, and potential arrest, while patients and doctors are subject to being thrown in jail through the use of method that the law employs, which relies on allowing private citizens to sue abortion providers or any additional person who aids or abets in an abortion once the designated 6-week period has passed, a point at which many women aren't even aware that they're pregnant. Additionally, these burdens will disproportionately fall upon women of color, those who reside within low-income class, young people, immigrants, those with disabilities, as well as LGBTQ+ communities. This ruling also has deadly consequences, with most harm being done to Black women and other women of color who are already facing a maternal mortality crisis that is most severe within the same states that are determined to ban abortion. Statistically, Black women are 3 times more likely than white women to die during childbirth or shortly thereafter. If abortion is banned nationwide, pregnancy-related deaths are estimated to increase drastically. Now, on the flip side, states that continue to allow abortion will likely see an influx of patients seeking care. For example, Texas enacted its roughly 6-week ban on abortion. Right after that happened, many Texas residents traveled outside of state to seek abortion care. Planned Parenthood reported that there was a nearly 800% increase in abortion patients from Texas compared to the same period within the prior year.
Hi, so thanks for stopping and talking with me. Can I get your name?
My name is Desiree. You're welcome.
Have you heard of Roe versus Wade?
Yes, I have.
Have you heard that it's been overturned, and how do you feel about that?
Yes, I did hear that it's been overturned. My feelings behind it, I just think that to protect women, to protect their rights, to protect their choices, and so for it to be overturned is disappointing. I am pro-woman, pro-choice. It's our bodies, and no one should make the decision other than that woman in terms of what is right or what is wrong for her body.
I love that response. So, have you heard of the Texas fetal heartbeat?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So tell me about your thoughts on that.
I mean, it kind of goes along with Roe versus Wade. Again, I mean, throughout pregnancies, certain things come up. And I think that it should be that woman's choice. It should be her and her partner's choice to make a decision that could impact their life, that could impact the baby's life as well. And I think that that should always continue to be open. And what I mean by that is to give that woman and her family that decision, because there's things that occur throughout pregnancy, and it can be even detrimental to that woman's body if she continues to, carry, or it can just be detrimental to the family financially. It may not be, I guess, a good decision. So there's a lot of things that come into play. And I think it goes just really back to a woman really making the choice of what's right for her, and not letting a politician or especially a man make a choice. And a lot of men in Congress sit around and they make these decisions for, I guess, what they think is best, but it really just goes back to what is important to that woman and what's the safest and healthiest way to carry a child and to bring that child into this world.
Hi everyone, my name is Alexis Felice. Texas has the highest number out of all states for rape offenses, yet it has the strictest abortion laws with no exceptions for women who are raped and end up pregnant. Governor Greg Abbott was confronted about this, and he was asked why it's acceptable to force a woman to have a child after she's been raped, especially with the statistics showing that they have the highest rapes. His response essentially was that they take rape very seriously in Texas, and that it's a crime. He mentioned that they're working to stop rapists and take them off the streets, and the goal is to make sure that no woman gets raped ever again, which sadly is fairly impossible. The act also allows private citizens, to sue anyone who breaks this law. So they can sue the female for having the abortion if they find out she had one, and they can sue the providers or the nursing staff that's assisted with this. The purpose of this law is to ban abortion and to force those who seek it to only do it under strict medical emergencies or medical necessity. It limits the rights of women to choose and limits access to safe abortions. This also limits providers' ability to assist patients in their right to choose. This took the right away for women to choose, especially under unforeseeable circumstances. This doesn't just affect women in Texas. This affects women everywhere, because essentially if it's this strict in Texas and this is upheld, essentially this can trickle down to other states. I spoke to a friend who works at Planned Parenthood in Orange County. She's been a nurse for right around 10 years. I knew her when I was younger, and I went with a friend to have an abortion, and that's where I met this nurse. We remained in contact. We kind of had similar friends. I asked her a few questions. So the first one was, how does she feel about the Roe versus Wade overturn? She said that she felt devastated and horrified that people would want to take this right away from women. She said that she felt that women should stick together and support each other, and yet all they're doing is fighting to remove rights from each other, without realizing that if the other women that are against abortion were affected by rape or incest, they would want the right to choose to keep the child or to abort. However, because they haven't been in those positions, they're making decisions for women that are in these positions. The second question I asked was, how does she feel about women who have multiple abortions? Which gave me a different perspective. She said, it does deeply bother me at times, but unfortunately, most of them are in relationships that involve domestic violence and therefore are forced into pregnancy. So they terminate before their significant other finds out. Other times, they're sex workers and that's all they know. She said most situations are not as black and white as people think, and that people have this idea that people just go around, get pregnant, and keep having abortions without even considering using protection. She said that some situations are like that. However, the doctors are able to refuse in certain circumstances, but many are not that careless, and the circumstances are much more than we think. The third question I asked is, the Texas Heartbeat Act is strict. How do you feel about the restrictions and the limitations, even though we don't live in Texas? She said, unfortunately, it seems that men made this decision mostly. And that's what people get when they live in a red state controlled by men. A little controversial, right? They get little support and little understanding. Texas has the highest number of reported rapes, yet women who are forcibly raped and fall pregnant can't abort. This forces women to relive probably the most traumatic incident of their lives. Not only that, but it can lead to detachment from the baby when the baby is born. It can lead to poor coping mechanisms like drugs and alcohol, which in turn only hurts the child's upbringing in the long run. Whether you agree with abortions or not, the restrictions on women in Texas are harsh. It makes safe options unavailable, and when women have nowhere to turn, they'll resort to unsafe options. These unsafe options can lead to infection, hemorrhage, and even death.
Like, what do you think is going to happen? Your prediction?
From what I remember in the past, there was like a lot of illegal practices going on with that.
Yeah.
I think that probably will happen again.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if in the future things like that get like, if they get caught, you know, they might, what did you say? Overturn it again?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. Because it's like once you take someone's like rights away like that, when of course it was needed, they're gonna fight for it, to look for it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My body, my choice.
My body, my choice. My body, my choice.
My body, my choice.
My body, my choice.
My body, my choice.
It's my body, my choice.
My body, my choice.